Good, happy Thursday morning, September 16, 2021. I'm Riley King, and welcome to this Thursday morning edition of the Riley King Newscast, right here on the Riley King Network. We have a lot of news to get to this Thursday morning, so let's get started right now. First up, suspect in Randolph crash to learn whether he has a chance at bail. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
Now's the time to get a great deal on taking care of your property. You need the #1 rated reliability of...
Today, the man charged with killing 7 motorcyclists in 2019 will find out if he has a chance at bail. The New Hampshire Supreme Court is expected to announce whether Vladimir Zhukovsky's legal team should have the right to present evidence that could lead to his release. He's been in jail for 2 years following the crash in Randolph. Zhukovsky's lawyers argue that it's not fair to say he's too dangerous to be released on bail.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Manchester home struck by lightning, leaving hole in the roof. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
In times like these, we're all spending more time with family and more time working our land. Visit ymahindra.com to build.
Now at 11, the damage from a stormy afternoon and evening. There are no injuries, but take a look at this. Some damage after a lightning strike hit a triple-decker home tonight on Forest Street in Manchester. We're told it left a 3-foot wide hole in the roof and hit the chimney.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Sununu urges more vaccination in New Hampshire as he vows to fight federal mandate. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
In times like these, we're all spending more time with family and more time working our land.
It'll be as bad or worse than last year in terms of cases.
Governor Sununu providing a grim outlook on another possible COVID-19 surge expected to hit the state this fall. Sununu says while hospitalization numbers may remain the same or even lower than the last surge, local hospitals could still be strained even more due to staff shortages.
It will actually be worse because we don't have the redundancy within our healthcare system, which is why our emphasis is so strong on doctors and nurses. We're not going to necessarily have 100% of our beds available.
And unless more Granite Staters get vaccinated, state health officials say there's no way to mitigate the surge.
Our vaccine numbers remain too low, and low vaccination is contributing to continued spread of COVID-19 in our communities.
The state is taking a new approach to get as many people vaccinated as possible, refocusing its efforts in areas where the vaccination rate is under 50%.
So what you're going to see is mobile clinics and vaccine vans that are going out, working with town hall officials, local fire and EMS, and trying to raise the vaccination rates.
And while the governor emphasizes vaccination is key to tame COVID-19, he's also preparing to sue the Biden administration over its proposed vaccine mandate on businesses.
The problem I really have with this is you have a unilateral one-size-fits-all mandate out of one branch of government, and that's just, for the most part, almost always the wrong approach.
And Governor Sununu says he is working with other governors and attorneys general across the country to figure out legal options against that federal mandate. Reporting live in Nashua tonight, I'm Tim Callery, WMUR News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Four Granite Staters die as COVID-19 cases continue to rise while hospitalizations drop. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
Now's the time to get a great deal on taking care of your property. You need the #1 rated.
Great, good afternoon. A brief numbers update for today. I'm also going to be reporting out on some vaccine numbers for Dr. Daly, who's not with us today. In terms of the number of new cases of COVID-19, we're reporting 549 new people diagnosed with COVID-19 in today's numbers. In fact, in the last week, in the last 7 days, we're now averaging over 400 new infections per day, and we have 3,726 people with active infection. Our test positivity is remaining relatively stable at 5.8% of all antigen and PCR tests combined that are positive for COVID-19. We have 130 people currently hospitalized in the state with COVID-19. And then unfortunately and sadly, 4 new people to report today that have died as a result of COVID-19, bringing the total number of deaths to 1,452 during this pandemic. 1 out of these 4 people is associated with a long-term care facility. 3 are not, so we are still seeing deaths associated with long-term care facility infections. However, the majority continue to be community-associated cases. And unfortunately, we have also seen deaths increase the last several weeks. And in the last week, we've reported out between 15 to 20 new people that have died from COVID-19 in the last 7 days. So these numbers are reflected in our levels of community transmission. We continue to see a substantial level of community transmission statewide in all New Hampshire counties. The vast majority of these infections, the vast majority of hospitalizations and deaths are occurring in people who are unvaccinated or not fully vaccinated. In fact, since the end of January, when we started tracking vaccine breakthrough infections, only about 3% of the infections that we've identified have been in people who are fully vaccinated. But the currently available vaccines remain highly effective at preventing infection, even against the Delta variant, and they remain very, very effective at preventing severe disease leading to hospitalizations and deaths from infection. But our vaccine numbers remain too low, and low vaccination is contributing to continued spread of COVID-19 in our communities. So I want to stress again the importance of people getting vaccinated and becoming fully vaccinated, because vaccination is the primary tool that we have to protect one's health and prevent spread of COVID-19 within our communities. Let me transition now to just give a brief update on the number of how we're doing with vaccinations. We continue to make progress getting more people vaccinated.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Two dozen COVID-19 clusters reported in New Hampshire schools in the past 2 weeks. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
Now's the time to get a great deal on taking care of your property. You need the #1 rated
Some startling new numbers tonight in our schools. Over the last 2 weeks in grades K through 12, there have been 25 new COVID-19 clusters. 23 remain active. Those clusters account for 146 total infections, 92% of which are children.
We're seeing cases and clusters rise in schools, I think highlighting again that point that there needs to be prevention strategies in place in schools to prevent infections, protect people's health, and to keep kids in school.
Due to substantial community transmission, the state continues to recommend mask wearing in schools, but that decision is left up to each individual district. Mask wearing on buses is a requirement.
This is not simply a recommendation. This is a requirement based on CDC's federal order for face masks to be worn on public transportation.
In terms of testing, the state recommends at a minimum that schools consider routine asymptomatic screening of sports teams due to the increased risk of exposure. And at-home test kits and results should be accepted.
When the instructions are followed closely and when swabs are appropriately collected, the at-home antigen tests should have comparable accuracy to provider-collected swabs and antigen testing.
Now, in terms of quarantine, the state says those who do test positive for the virus must quarantine for at least 10 days. Non-household and community contacts are no longer required to quarantine, but those contacts should be tested 5 days after exposure. Live in Manchester tonight, Jason King, WMUR News.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. Investigators searching again in Connecticut River after missing New Hampshire woman's car was found. Let's take a listen to that video from WMUR News 9.
Now's the time to get a great deal on taking care of your property. You need the #1 rated.
After 43 years, investigators and family members say science is about to solve the mystery of Alberta Lehman's disappearance. They returned to the Connecticut River in Lancaster, where the Gorham mother's car was discovered last month in 14 feet of water, upside down and partially buried on the bottom. Her daughter Nancy has stood on the shore during these difficult days.
I have driven past her for these 43 years and never knew.
New sonar equipment led investigators to the car and some human remains. Now they're conducting a more extensive search and recovery, hoping to positively identify Alberta through her daughter's DNA.
Once they have enough bone to test and put it with mine, then we'll know if it's my mom.
Investigators brought in a specialized workboat they say has never been used in New Hampshire before to pump out and analyze the contents of the car, which divers could only feel by hand before.
It allows us a larger platform on top of the water, on top of the scene, which allows forensic anthropologists and archaeologists to evaluate the contents of what's found within the vehicle.
They say they have the same goal as the family: closure.
Hopefully it's her and we can finally put her to rest with my dad.
And investigators say they do not suspect foul play, but they still have been determined to solve this case for more than 4 decades. Live in the studio tonight, Jean Mackin, WMUR.
Okay, and there you go on that video and that report. And that does it for this morning edition of the Riley King Newscast right here on the Riley King Network. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here later on today for another newscast. Thank you for tuning in this morning and watching the Riley King Newscast. Goodbye, everyone.